doesn't touch the Lombardi Trophy anymore.
Did he catch it?
No, he. I don't think he was the one that caught it.
I think he did.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Well, he had this interview because he apparently he dented one of the ones that they won in New England.
He did.
He's like, I don't touch them anymore. Because,
the NFL probably had him sign something to say, and
drunk smash.
He
literally
blamed it on like Julian Edelman. It was like, it's really funny. If you find it, you got to watch it, because I was like, oh my god, this is something Gronk would do.
That's great.
All right, everybody. So if you were listening to that little bit of conversation, which was part of a much larger conversation, you are listening to episode 66 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Just enjoying the aftermath of the Super Bowl, which was really a boring Super Bowl in my opinion. But, now it's on to Dynasty and just trying to get all my leagues sorted now and ready for the new league year. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I feel a little bit differently about the Super Bowl than I think the majority of people out there, but we'll I'm sure bring that up many, many times throughout this episode. So if you're watching us on YouTube, which I highly suggest you do if you can, you see a very attractive man with us. That is our guest for this week, Andrew Hall at Andrew Hall FF. Andrew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Josh. How about yourself?
Can't complain, man. Can't complain. The NFL season is over, but us Dynasty guys, we are in this 365. So this is just another day on the calendar for us, especially now that if you play on any of the MFL leagues, you had the nice little turnover there. Now it's set. You know what picks you actually have. It's not just a name; it's an actual number next to it. So now the real frenzy can begin as we start inching closer and closer to rookie drafts and the NFL draft and free agency and all of that fun stuff. So the news was the Super Bowl. Obviously, you saw the game most likely if you're watching us. It was a blowout. I think that if there's one thing we learned, offensive lines do matter. It showed in that game when Patrick Mahomes ran for almost 500 yards before actually throwing the ball. It just shows that when you lose 4 of your offensive linemen, it might be a little bit difficult to not only throw, but run, which the Chiefs didn't do much of either. But I enjoyed it because, the Bucs played a good game. The Chiefs had a lot going on. They had the offensive line troubles. They had the issue with their linebackers coach, which everybody knows about. So they had some things that kind of weren't working in their favor. But it just was like it was the cherry on top of a 2020 season, which a lot of people said wasn't going to happen. We were really kind of at the start of a pandemic, a global pandemic, and people were like, I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think we're going to have a season, and then they announced they were going to have a season, and then it was like, okay, games are going to end up getting canceled and moved around, and they're not going to be able to finish the season. And they finished the regular season, made it through the playoffs, and this was kind of the exclamation point at the end of the 2020 season, which, I was happy about. So even though it wasn't the most competitive game I've ever seen, I'm glad it happened. I'm glad, we were able to watch an entire season, play an entire season of fantasy and do that. So now that I've said my piece about the Super Bowl and why I was actually happy to see it, even though it was a blowout, we're gonna go to the timeline. So this first one here, I don't know if anybody knows this guy, but this is from an Andrew Hall FF at Andrew Hall FF. I love when I find tweets by our guests, and especially good tweets like this by our guests, because I like things that make you think. So this is Team A sends calculator results to Team B to show why the trade was fair. Not saying calculator should be considered the lone arbiter of value, but sending trade calculator results as part of a negotiation is generally considered a dick move or pointless, and or a fair / part of trade talks. So, sending the trade calculator, is it cool? Is it not cool? Bill, I want you to start this one off. Cool or not cool?
I think it's fine. Like it all depends on how the person that's receiving it is wired. I think if somebody's a little bit more, somebody who naturally gets insulted by bad trade offers, people who, feel like certain things are questioning their intelligence, that sort of thing. Like it just kind of depends on, I think, how you're wired. So, like for me with trades, most of the time I'm just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like regardless of what. Regardless of what you're thinking, like nobody's gonna. It would be a counterpoint to somebody to say that's a ridiculous trade, and then you show it, and then it's like, well, this doesn't believe that's the case. So I guess it's really just how the tool is used in response to something. But I'm okay with it. Like it doesn't bother me. I mean, I would just say, okay, well, yeah, I see that. And I feel like this asset is overstated in the calculator, and that's why we have a disconnect. Something like that. So I'm definitely in the fair part of it. I'm not going to get mad. I don't think it's a dick move, unless there's kind of a maybe some spice to the conversation already, and people are a little like heated. Then it could be construed as a dick move.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said, Bill. I think it's pointless, and the reason why is if you've sent me a trade offer and I've responded to you and said, hey, like, not, I really don't think this is the trade for me. I don't think this is really even. I like, player A in this deal maybe a little bit more than you do or whatever. Showing me a calculator doesn't really change my opinion. Like the calculator says that player A is worth 10 points. Cool. But if I think the player is worth 15 points, I don't really care what the calculator has to say, because that's just my and I could be wrong, by the way. It's not just because I have a feeling
it's
on
all opinion, right? It's
right.
Not right or wrong.
If I think, let's just, random example. If I think DJ Moore is going to be a top 3 wide receiver next year, and the trade calculator has him more as like a 12 to 15 receiver, obviously there's going to be a disconnect in the value. So I think most of the times it's pointless, because people have their own feelings on a variety of different players. Bill and I have disagreed on players before in the past, and I always say, like, those disagreements usually can help maybe make a trade go down, because if Bill likes a guy, I'm a little bit lower on a guy. Well, he might come to me and say, hey, like, you have this guy in your squad, let's try to get something done. And I'll probably be a little bit more, willing to move that guy, because I don't, but if we're not agreeing, we're not agreeing. The trade calculator isn't going to all of a sudden shine this light in my eyes that says, oh my God, the way I thought about this was wrong the whole time, and now this calculator has shown me the right way. I normally don't think it's a dickish move unless, like Bill said, there's kind of that intent. There have been words said that have kind of shown it. Some more it's in the pointless category, but I also don't think it is necessarily something to be insulted by. Maybe even if the person sending it is saying, hey, like, this is kind of why I thought this deal might work. I wanted to show this to you. Like, understand it may not get it done, but like, I just want so that you don't think that I'm trying to either rip you off or, maybe buy something at a steep discount. If it's presented that way, I could understand that totally.
That's exactly it. And so I want to jump in here, because you guys are making great points. There was a tweet before that in the thread that I think a lot of people missed, because the poll was all that got retweeted.
Yeah.
And the idea was, I sent someone a trade. It was a pick that I was sending, a 3rd round pick for 2 scrub players, right? It's not a big deal trade. It's not one of those, Barkley for 17 guys. It's not one of those, you know what I mean? Like, well, the trade, no, it's a little tiny trade. And I got the response back, are you serious? You got to be kidding me. And then like via chat, I was like, that is a bad trade. And I'm like, hey, I'm just trying to start the talks. You know what I mean? Like, it's a little tiny trade. I didn't mean to offend. And so I just in my head, I was like, well, so if I send a trade calculator screenshot just to be like, here's where my thoughts were, it's not changing your mind. That to me, I think is a difference of opinion too. You're never going to change somebody's mind by sending a calculator. It's never happened, right? Like, that's not what they're for.
Right.
I use them to try to build trades that I think are even, or that can at least start the talk as a starting point. And I think that's kind of where it comes off as a dick move to some, because I'm trying to change your mind. It's like, no, I'm not. I know that's not what they're for. There are also multiple of them. They're also always behind, right? They're never accurate to the moment. They can't be. So, for instance, Heineke just got signed, right? His value is probably next to nothing. But then when he gets signed, his value goes up by some unknown amount, right? So if he gets signed, if I have him in a league, I might value him more than I did yesterday. Myself, right? That's not even a calculator that tries to find the market value, which is impossible. So I almost always use it as a starting point, and then I come back with it at the end and be like, hey, I wasn't trying to be rude. I'm not trying to rob you. I'm not trying to one-up you. Here was my thought process. I agree that we're on the wrong page. That's fine. I'm just trying to show you where I'm coming from so that you don't think I'm an idiot and don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm trying to fleece you or something. Like, that's kind of the thought process, was more of a, hey, here's where I'm at, not you should change your mind. Right. That's the difference, in my opinion. And that's what I think the trade poll, the poll itself, got a little bit, people got heated because some people, like Bill was saying, some people are just wired that way, where they're like, go F yourself. That's just how they're wired. That's okay.
Well, and I think that, like, the fact that he's like, are you serious? Like, that would have, like, led me to go, all right, I'm just going to step away from this, because, like, he's obviously somebody who takes the stuff a little personally. Like, I would never send that if somebody sent me one that I felt was a bad offer. I would just reject and not even say a word. So that would, I guess, be my tell. You know what I mean? I
send trades all the time. I get responses from all sorts of people. I send thirds for 2 picks, 2 players. I send them out in every league. Sometimes I'm sitting there just bored. Like, here, let me send this out to 3 players, three leagues. And so to me, it was one of those like, well, I get where you're upset, but you shouldn't be upset. It's just like, it's not worth your time to get angry about this.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And it absolutely is. And I think that's like it's something I learned, because, like, I mean, I was one of the people, like, when I started, I used trade calculators because I wasn't comfortable with my own valuations. So when I would send that to somebody who was maybe more seasoned, they'd be like, this is ridiculous. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just doing it off of what this website's telling me to do,
Right. And it's an easy out. It's a cover.
And, but yeah, so like now I could see it when there's somebody who's a little more seasoned. And I mean, that's any of us that have been playing for a while. And, somebody sends me an offer, but I don't just assume that somebody, like, I mean, I guess I would assume you know what you're doing. So like, if you're making me an offer I don't like, I just reject it. And I'm never going to be like, dude, like, what the hell, because I don't care enough, I guess, is my point. And like, or if somebody does send me the thing, I would almost, if I didn't know who they were, I would think they were maybe, a beginner, and I would be more willing to be patient with them. But, I think it's just, people just get fired up about the wrong things. And I don't, I guess I'm old enough to know that stuff's not worth getting upset over. There's enough in life that can bother you that's important. This stuff is not it. So
yeah. Well, there are also people that just need to win the trade, right? We've all had these kind of discussions, and it's like, I honestly, I've said this to a lot of people. I don't mind losing a trade in the sense of Twitter polls or calculators or whatever. If I get my guy, or if it's somebody who I think is on the rise, I mean, that's something else that calculators don't factor in. Like I was saying with the timing, is that if I'm trading you 2 declining assets for 1 rising asset, but the calculator says you win, and the Twitter poll, everybody thinks that you win, I'm happy with that because I got the ascending asset, right? So it's like, there's a whole bunch more context to every single league too. Like, some leagues I'm in are 2 tight end or a tight end premium, and the calculator doesn't factor that in. I might be willing to pay the house for Noah Fant, Like just because I need another tight end to make sure I've got that covered and I can play him in flex, the value is a lot higher than a calculator was. So, I mean, it's impossible. It's just more of, I think, again, it's just like, here's my thinking, here's where I was at, not trying to be rude. Because, I mean, in Dynasty, too, you can't burn bridges. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the problem, right?
Guys. Yeah, you're playing with these guys potentially for years. The last thing you want to do is go piss somebody off, sending them a 3rd-round pick for 2 players they don't need. It's like, dude, it was just a little trade. I was just dicking around on the toilet one day. Like, who cares? Like, come on.
and that's like, because if you do that, you've lost 9% of your trade partners in like a 12-team league, and it's like, damn, this sucks. So, I get it. You got like, you just have to tread lightly when you do it, I think, when you send something like that, like it sounds like you did, like, hey, I'm just showing you where I was coming from, so it's not as ridiculous as maybe, or at least from my viewpoint, it's not that ridiculous.
Yeah, I do that a lot with players I haven't traded with yet, or like newcomers to the league, or someone just to be like, hey, here's a calculator's value. Because I also try it, and this is maybe a little bit inside baseball, but like I don't always try to give away my values on players, right? I kind of hold those cards close to the chest, be like, I don't want someone to know I'm willing to overpay for DJ Moore. You know what I mean? Like it's better for me not to. If they think I'm down on DJ Moore, I can get him for a better price, So that's kind of where it comes to like, hey, here's a third party. This isn't me. Here's a third party. Like you said before, Bill, it's like cover. Like, no, this is what somebody said. It was fair. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this brings up a good point, and Short Logic, one of our boys, good friend of the show, he does something that I do, and I use the calculator. If let's just use an example. Like, hey, I want Saquon. I think Saquon's worth 1 first right now. All right, I put it into the calculator. Calculator's like, you're about 2 first-round picks off.
Right.
All right, now I know that if, sending that trade is probably just going to end up pissing someone off, even if that's what my value is. So I get to make a decision. Do I just say, screw it, I don't want Saquon anymore? Or do I maybe get a little bit closer? Maybe I go 2 firsts or 2 firsts and a second, something that isn't what the calculator says it is, because I'm a little bit lower on Saquon, even though I want the piece of it, and I do, because sometimes I'm like, hey man, I have Devontae Adams here. I think that should get me like Justin Jefferson and a first, and like Cam Akers, and the calculator's like, hold on, Chief, you're punching a little bit above your weight.
A little
on
ambitious fella.
Right, and that's a good thing too. I mean, I don't build trades in a calculator to say like they have to be exactly the same amount of points, but I want to be in the ballpark. I don't want to send a trade that's either going to just insult someone, or send a trade where I'm selling an asset that maybe I don't appreciate as much at a severe discount based on kind of what the community is looking at that same asset as. So that's something I do, but I also think this is such a bigger topic, more than even just trade calculators, because it's
about valuation. Everybody values players so differently. There's no one way to do it, and then there's no way no one's right or wrong either. Right. So like you can make a trade and feel like you won it, and everybody says you didn't, but who cares? You still feel like you won it. You know what I mean? Like it's such an odd thing. And I love that about this game, because we all value players differently, and that changes every week. And especially in the non-point scoring season, as Russ calls it, right? We have a lot of things, little news breaks. You get trickles of things, right? Yeah. And the whole market goes wild on a player. I love watching that happen. If I have them or don't, right? It's just so much fun to be a part of it.
Yeah. And what that news blurb, for me, that might be, okay, that adds like a 4th round of value. But to you, it adds a 2nd round of value. And so this is where it's really like just almost manic. It's not like, once we have all the news and everything's settled, we have a draft, we have all the free agent signings, we have all of that. Everybody kind of gets into that group think and kind of says, okay, this is the industry-wide value for this player. And, we might err a little bit one way or the other, but like when all this news is happening, you want to see how quick, how important it is to react quickly, and how much you want to overreact or underreact. And this is a fun time with that, like just the unknown until the draft.
Yep.
Yeah. And, it's funny playing, in a league, no matter how many, 10 teams, 12 teams, 16 teams, it doesn't matter. It's like you are in a very weird, like, sister wife-ish relationship with all these other teams because you need to figure out everyone's different personality. You need to like make sure that you don't offend someone or insult someone, and sending a trade calculator to one person could tick them off, and sending it to the next team is just like, oh, like I see what you're saying here, it's just not for me. But people feel the same way about comments. Like some people hate if you reject the trade and don't comment. Some people don't give a shit. Like, and you have to like try to, obviously if you're playing with a lot of the same people, you figure out their tendencies and it's cool. But like, I've had people, well, how come you didn't put a comment? And
Or you didn't counter. Like, well, no, I didn't counter. I was busy when I got the trade. It didn't look like something I was interested in. I just rejected. Like, I don't know. I got 7 months till the season starts. I got time to counter. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine.
And some people are like insulted if you take more than like 24 hours to respond to their trade offer. And I'm like, look, bro, like I understand, but like I have 3 kids. I have a demanding job. Sometimes I don't fucking look at the trade till the next day or 2 days late. I know it came in, like I see it, but I like when I see a trade, I sit down and I really kind of parse, unless it's like I can tell on its face it's not worth it for me. I'm parsing it out. I'm trying to figure out, is this what the value should be? Should I ask for more? Should I offer less? Like, what's I'm trying to figure all that out. So yeah, sometimes I can get back to you in an hour and sometimes it's like 2 or 3 days. And it's just like, but some people are like, dude, I sent this to you like 2 days ago. How come you haven't gotten back to me? And it's like, I get it, but like,
I missed it, man. Yeah.
Take the deep breath and let's like, we'll be
especially
okay.
in February. I mean, I get that if it's like week 6 and the trade is sent on a Tuesday and it's because of a bye week, like
right.
It's February, man. Like, come on. Like, I'm the same way. I send stuff all the time, and then I'm like, man, I really hope they're looking at that. And then like a week goes by, and I'm like, oh yeah, I never heard back. I must have just fallen off, like because the timer goes, in NFL or whatever, like it just stops. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll send it again in a month.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just real interesting how you play in leagues and there's so much psychology and just figuring out like how to keep people happy and keep those trade partners interested so that when you do want that, that one guy or that pick, you're on good terms with them and they're not the angry wife that, is not talking to you right now because you said something or did something 3 months ago that, ticked them off. So it's a fun game we play.
I love it.
No matter what anyone says. But, all right, that was a good one. I want to move on to this next one here. This is from Hayden at limes_ff. Who do we like more next year, Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins? So, Andrew, you're our guest. I want you to go first on this one. Who do you like?
Man, I mean, they're both in good spots. They're both in those kind of second-year breakout candidate role and all that, but I just think the Ravens run the ball too much. I got to go with Dobbins. I have Akers in a couple leagues, and I would love to trade him for Dobbins plus right now. That would be phenomenal. I don't think it's going to happen. I also have Dobbins in a couple leagues and would never trade him plus for Akers, right? Like I'm higher on Dobbins myself. I just think he's in a better offense with a better position, a better, I don't know, scheme, however you want to put it. The Rams are going to run the ball. Akers is going to have to deal with a lot of competition. In a new offense now with Stafford. I mean, I don't know. There's some question marks there. Give me the Dobbins and I'll be happy with it. That's kind of where I'm at.
All right. I think I know how Bill's going to go on this one. So Bill, tell the people where you're at on this one.
I mean, Andrew basically said exactly like what I would say. I mean, it's just the scheme, no doubt. Like, I mean, I just feel more comfortable with that offensive line. I feel more comfortable with, with Dobbins. He showed he was getting a lot more play the second half of the season. I mean, the same thing happened with Akers, but I mean, he has Henderson. Is that what? Yeah.
Yep. Darrell Henderson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Behind him, who I think is a little bit more capable than the other running backs, and a little bit more prolific than the other running backs in Baltimore. So I think just with that being the reason, I mean, it's pretty pretty easily Dobbins. I mean, by how much? I would probably need, I don't know, a mid-second to consider, and I don't
Right
even know
there.
if that
Yep.
would do it for me. Maybe an early second. Because, I mean, otherwise, I would just rather the guy I feel better going into the season with. And, I mean, the value is probably, I would probably need more than what the value difference is between the two. I'm going to actually look that up on one of the calculators and see what the
Yeah,
price is.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder what the calculator says about this. But even then, the calculator is a little behind, like we were saying before. And the Acres hype on Twitter, especially, is just getting out of hand. I mean, my goodness, everybody seems to be all over that Acres train right now. Which, again, it's what we're used to. This is what you guys handle every week on the timeline, right? You deal with this stuff all the time. But I think if you can strike while the iron's hot and get Dobbins for Acres, go for it, please. Go for
on
it.
the DTC, Dobbins is worth 0.8 points more than Akers. So that's the equivalent of like a 4th-round pick, I think.
And
DLF, it's about a mid-second, like you were saying, Bill. It's about a
Okay.
mid-second more. Dobbins is a mid-second more, give or take. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it's 36 to 35.2 Dobbins, and then a 4th is worth 1 point. So that would be, they're pretty much spot on. It would be a 1-for-1 trade essentially. So yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize that Akers had jumped up that much, but anybody using DTC probably isn't going to make that trade with me. But I guess if I have Akers somewhere, I might try to make that move in some leagues if I want to get Dobbins over him.
Well, I'd do Akers in a 4th for Dobbins, right? I mean, what's a 4th-round pick, right? If that's
Exactly.
if it's gonna make the Dobbins owner feel like, oh, I'm getting a little extra and I like Akers more, great, have at it, right? But that's one of those too. If I put that on Twitter, Akers plus a 4th is going to win hands down. Even in this poll that we're talking about now, Akers won straight up. I feel like the community is all over the place with him, and our own individual leagues are their own individual markets. I know for a fact my home league, the guy that has Dobbins thinks he's 101 of all, right? He's not going to trade him for anything. So I could throw Akers and Taylor and he'd probably still say no, which is ridiculous, right? But that market is just blown out of proportion. It's just irrational. So that's, again, we're back to calculators. Like, that doesn't matter in that league. Like, it's just crazy. But yeah.
And I'm going to make it 3 for 3. I'm with Dobbins here. And the crazy thing is like, I'm listening to you talk, Andrew, and when you're saying Dobbins plus for Akers, my brain automatically registers that as crazy. But then, like, once that initial, like, that's crazy, then you look at it and it's so true. And to me, it's like, no, like, if I had Dobbins, like, and someone was like, hey, like, trade me Dobbins and whatever, a second for Akers, I would be like, no. Like, I need Akers and a second for Dobbins. Like, the second is on the wrong side here. Like,
Yep.
however you want to say it, the second is on the wrong side. Like, and if he goes to me like, do you understand? Like, I'd be like, I understand that there's a hype on Akers right now. I get it. Like, the hype is real, but like, I like Dobbins more during the draft process. I had him ranked higher, in my rookie rankings, but so nothing that happened last year turned Akers into the better long-term prospect for me. And Bill mentioned it. Darrell Henderson is there. Cam Akers isn't doing anything week 1 because that's always Malcolm Brown with like 3 touchdowns.
Right.
Like,
On your bench.
That's so
Yeah.
true, man. That's like every
week
year.
1, man, just start Malcolm Brown, get yourself a W, and go on you spend like a 20th round pick on him. Like,
That's a great buy low option you're on there, Josh. Go buy Malcolm Brown. He's a 1-week rental. He'll win you week 1.
you can get him for 4th right now. You
Easily.
win. You're
Yeah.
1-0 to start the season with Malcolm
Yeah.
Brown start. But not only does Dobbins, is the offense built around running. They run like 40 times a game or something like that. But we don't know what's going to happen we know Mark Ingram has already been cut. He was cut before the playoffs started. we don't know what's going to happen with the Gus Edwards. Does someone else sign him? If he's not in town, it's J.K. Dobbins and what? They sign a
Carlos
free agent.
Hyde,
Frank Gore. Oh,
Adrian
Frank-
Peterson.
yeah, they
Gore.
like veterans, right? They got Ingram, so I could see them going out and getting a guy like that just to fill the room. I mean,
Right,
that's how much they run. That's how much
Oh.
they run. That's how much they like to run the ball. Is they want to have 4 options, which obviously does kind of hurt Dobbins' stock, but not for me.
I hope that Gus resigns there because he is just a perfect fit for that offense, and I think I hope he realizes that like things aren't greener on the other side unless you get some crazy offer financially. Then of course you got to take what you got to take. But like, I mean, he is what he is. He's that role, he's that guy that's going to get you 4 yards when you need it, and not dynamic, but that's. That,
Well, he can also
he
do a
averages
whole
like
series.
5 yards a carry. It's like ludicrous. Like it's like a perfect match for him.
Well, he can also take over and do a whole series if somebody gets hurt, right? Gus can come in there and be in the third quarter. If Dobbins gets an ankle injury or needs to sit on the sideline, Gus Edwards can come in and run the ball just fine for a series. Like he's perfect for that role. And I agree entirely. I think he should resign. I think he's a perfect complement to what that team wants. They can run 2-back sets. They did that a little bit this year. I don't know the numbers, but I've seen that a couple different places where it was Ingram and Dobbins, and it was like, well, if you get Ingram out of there, that'd be Gus, and I think that makes more sense. I mean, there's a lot of competition for running backs right now. There's a lot of new guys, coming into the league. There's a bunch of veterans that just aren't ready to get out of the league. So I think there aren't that many spots, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm with you, Bill. I think it makes sense for Gus to stay put.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I mean, we've seen this 100 times. The best spot that we think the player should be in isn't the spot that they think they should be in. Sometimes money's involved. Sometimes playing time is involved.
Yeah. Like where my family is. It could be just crazy. I mean, not crazy, but just it could be something we have we're not privy to at all.
Right.
Went to high school in Dallas. Oh, I really want to play in Dallas.
I have a kid that's there. There's just different things. So.
And that's the thing. So if Gus isn't there, who are we looking to fill that spot? You guys mentioned some names, the Adrian Petersons, the Carlos Hydes of the world, or they draft somebody in like the 5th round, and then we're looking at I said Justice Hill for some reason. We're looking at
he's still there, yeah.
Yeah, he's alive. We're looking at J.K. Dobbins all of a sudden, and we're like, wow, there's not a real kind of person there to take stuff away from him like Gus Edwards was doing in a limited workload.
And just if you play the game kind of playing the market in a way, like this is like that's a play that you could make that's almost like free, right? So like if you are willing to make that trade and give up a third, let's say even, like so you give up why am I already blanking on his name?
I don't
Gus?
know.
Or
No.
Adrian or
no, Akers. If you're giving up Akers and a third to get Dobbins, then like you're kind of free rolling if they don't sign somebody. Because if they don't sign somebody during free agency and he signs elsewhere, then all of a sudden you're like everybody's going to go nuts for him. And then you'd be able to trade him for more if you're not. You could trade him for, I don't know, throw in one of those other rookie backs, right?
Swift plus, Taylor plus.
Yeah. Or you might get Swift if you like Swift better, and you can like do a lateral move. Or maybe you do a third and Dobbins for Taylor if you like Taylor. There's more opportunity that way. And if nothing comes of it, you're still with you lost a third. But there's some opportunity. Like if they end up drafting a guy in the 5th, nobody's gonna be afraid of him all the way into the beginning of the season. So the value on Dobbins will be astronomical if that were to happen, where you're not going to have that opportunity with Akers.
I mean, this is the floor for Dobbins, right? There's really nothing the team can do that makes his value go down, in my mind. With Akers, I'm not sure that's the case, right? I mean, they could come out with some blurbs that say that Darrell Henderson's going to, split carries or something, and then that causes the market to overreact and everybody panic sells Akers. I don't see that happening with Dobbins, right? I mean,
Right.
especially right now, it's all about trying to add value to your team, trying to insulate that value as much as you can in the offseason, trying to take more sure bets than question marks. I'm also a big proponent of you got to have a little bit of everything on your team, right? You can't be a team of all floor. You can't be a team of all ceiling. You have to have a mix. Otherwise, you're not going to make it through. So it's sort of like looking at your, portfolio of your team and saying, well, do I have a lot of guys that have high ceilings? And then let's go get a guy with a high floor. I'm trading Akers, right? And that's kind of where I think each league, each team, when you kind of zoom in really close on that, the context, all of that context matters. If you've got all flash in the pan guys, I would really prefer Dobbins in that role. Someone who I know is going to hold his value and maintain a base. And then I'll take 30 receivers that are all just flyers, like Quintez Cephas and Brian Edwards and like all these crazy, you never know, like one of them might hit. Yeah, but you might have no points that week. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's brutal. So yeah, I think all that context matters.
So Hayden, long story short, I think we're all going with J.K. Dobbins here. And even though the poll ended up at pretty much 58-42 in favor of Akers, if you're a Dobbins guy, I mean, that means
I love those polls. I love seeing that because I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, time to pick up some Dobbins, especially if you have Akers on your squad. Hey, how about I trade you this bright, shiny Akers for, like, we were saying, Dobbins in a second, Dobbins in a third, and just kind of pick up a free pick there for a guy that you think is the better play anyway. So all right, we're gonna move it on to the next one here. This is from our buddy, our DAP Network brother, Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict. Favorite guy to buy, not in the top 100 in current Superflex DLF ADP. So I don't know if you guys have this up yet. So if you don't, I can go first, or if one of you guys wants to take it first, let me know.
I got it. Okay. There's a couple guys right outside the January DLF Superflex ADP that I think are easy buys and are kind of buy highs. You see like Gabriel Davis. Everybody's loving Gabriel Davis. You see guys like Kenyon Drake is in there. Now, here's the funny thing to me. Kenyon Drake could be a terrific buy low. It depends, a lot of question marks, right? You don't know where he's going to go next year. You don't know what team who he's going to play with. He might not even be that great. But I have a strong feeling you can get Drake from the right owner for a third. If you get somebody who thinks that this draft class is super deep and I need picks or something like that, I think you could get Drake away for very little. So he's somebody I'd try to buy real low on. But the one I'm really targeting that I've actually done already in almost every league this year is Jalen Reagor, who's at 101, right? Literally just outside the top 100. But I think Reagor is going to have a terrific year this year. Receivers always take a little longer to come together. This year was kind of a crazy year anyway. They had a quarterback change. There was a whole bunch of chaos. They're still starting Alshon Jeffrey for some unknown reason. So I think once the board clears a little, you get Ertz out of there, you get some different coaches in there, I think Reagor is going to blow up. And I do think that there are a lot of people that might be giving up on him. We were talking before about how the market values players. It's such a reactive market. And if you don't do anything, that's easily the player you can just be like, never mind, I'm done with him. He didn't do anything for me. So I think Reagor is one of those guys that I would love to. I've already done it, but I would love to get him for next to nothing in a trade or a throw in on some other offer.
Okay, so we got a Jalen Reagor. Bill, you still looking, or do you got someone?
Yeah, I think I got two.
Okay.
Different positions. So wide receiver at 158, Paris Campbell. He looked really good when he started out before he got hurt. He was like getting targeted left and right that first half, I guess it was. But I mean, just think if you prorate that. I'm kidding, but
extrapolate that out.
Yeah, right. And he looked like he was at least going to be a part of that offense, and that's a positive thing. And so I think he might be somebody to shoot for. Another guy is at I lost him already. 152, tight end, Zach Ertz. I mean, for a 152, that's like just easy money to me. Like, I mean, if he doesn't work out, big deal. But he's probably moving on to another situation. I imagine they may cut him or maybe move him. Uh, so it just because they have a bunch of financial issues, right? So that would at least help them a little bit. And they have Goddard, so that's another guy that you could maybe shoot for a little bit more if you're happy with him. But I don't know how much things change with Wentz not being the quarterback. How that's going to affect the whole offense and like where the targets are going to go and that sort of thing. So I would rather just roll the dice on the cheaper Ertz and see what happens.
Well, and if you're looking at it too, there's one of the drafts somebody took him at 124 that really elevated his value. So he's even really going lower than that. He's going around 160, 170, which I mean, if that's where the market's valuing, I'm right there with you. That's a buy.
Yeah, you're like what?
Hands
that's
down.
Like 15th round. I mean,
wasn't he like tight end 4 2 years ago? Last year, I mean, he was
last
going
year.
Into
He probably was.
Yeah,
still.
I think he was going into the season
Yeah,
like top
yeah.
4. He was that top second tier tight end, and then he just fell off. That talent doesn't go away. He's not 50.
Right.
I'm there. Yeah, he could
he's
be
30 years old,
deal.
so it's not even like he's still in that prime of tight ends. Like, tight ends last a little bit longer than the other positions, and
Well, and man, I think he could definitely see such a value spike. Like, what if he signs in Jacksonville? Trevor Lawrence, DJ Chark, James Robinson. Now you have Zach. Like, watch that graph just go straight to the moon after he signs there, because the Trevor Lawrence hype plus Urban
Could you imagine what Twitter would say if Zach Ertz signs with the Jacksonville Jaguars or something, like a team that is desperate at tight end? That it would go nuts. He'd be tight end 4 overnight. I mean,
or what if he signs in? What if he signs with the Jets and the Jets take Justin Fields or Zach Wilson at 2? Now you have this brand new quarterback. They have Denzel Mims, which is another guy outside of the top 100. If you want to do some buying, I bought a share of him during the playoff run. I was out of it, so I sold Adam Thielen for a first and Denzel Mims. But they got Denzel Mims. They got this brand new quarterback. Now they have Zach Ertz. It's going to be, depending on where he goes, you could see a lot of excitement that skyrockets that value.
What if he goes to Seattle? Something like that, where there's like a tight end void on a team that needs to, have short passing and needs to have pass or run blockers. And I mean, like, that's the kind of team.
Buffalo.
You're speaking about that.
Wow,
Austin Knox is another one of my favorites. Don't do that
I
to
do
my
like
Knox.
him.
I like him too, but I
right.
mean, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs,
and they were looking to add Olsen last year, right? And so like they were looking to add somebody else. Like, they're not 100% sold on Knox, and I mean, he's still young. I mean, he's the second year in the league, so I think that is a possibility that they could look to add somebody like him.
He could really help calm Josh Allen down too. You know what I mean? Like, help him out.
So, that's what I'm saying. Like, I have a feeling that, if he signs in the right spot, all of a sudden, if you can get him now at that, I forgot what spot you said, Bill, 160 or 170, something like that. But if you can get him at that spot now, and then he signs at one of these like prime locations that really doesn't have an elite tight end to speak of, you're just going to see that value skyrocket. My guy, and this is a continuation of everything I was saying last year during the lead up to the draft, a 136 wide receiver 53, Bryan Edwards.
Hell yeah.
And, Andrew just did a backflip on screen.
and look, if you look at the grand total of Bryan Edwards' season, you don't see anything that really is exciting, but he missed weeks 4 through 10 with injury, and then also followed that up by missing weeks 14 and 15 with injury as well. But weeks 2 and 3, and let's remember, this isn't a season where there was no training camp, these guys were pretty much coming in and hitting the ground running. Week 2 against New Orleans, 2 receptions for 42 yards. Week 3 against New England, 2 receptions for 48 yards. So the guy wasn't getting a ton of targets, 5 total targets in those 2 games, but he's clicking at over 20 yards per reception. And then obviously he kind of blew up a little bit, and people kind of saw him week 17. Didn't matter for us fantasy guys, but again, just 2 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown. So we know that this guy can be explosive. And, Darren Waller is a beast. He's a stud, but they can't throw it to him every time. They got to throw it to someone else. And I think Bryan Edwards is that guy. He is a big dude that runs fast and can catch the ball. And at wide receiver 53 at 136 in ADP, like you can do a lot worse than a guy that has that kind of upside. So I'll let everybody in the listener league know now that at 136, that's who we're taking. So
and another one that I was scrolling down like way further to see if there was anybody that caught my eye, and at 214 is Gerald Everett. He's leaving. He's an athletic, kind of the guy. He's not going to be a great blocker, so that's the kind of tight end you want. You want a guy that's going to be running routes, and he goes to a new team, maybe gets a little bit more opportunity. Maybe he's a guy that for pretty much nothing you might be able to hit on. So that's somebody that I would look at later in the drafts, or maybe you can get him for like a third.
How is he going behind Andy Dalton? That seems odd to me. Like, who is drafting Andy Dalton over Gerald Everett?
Right.
I mean, I guess I would say I would trade Gerald. Like, I would trade away Dalton for Everett, but in Superflex, obviously the trades are a little different than ADP. But at the same time, I would really rather have Everett. I mean, he could be a starting tight end for you. That's nuts.
Yep. Or Njoku. I mean, there's a lot of tight ends. I think there's once you get between probably from tight end 7 to tight end 20. They're pretty much all in the same tier.
Yep.
So it's once you get past those first 6, it's almost like, all right, I'm just going to sit back until in a startup for all you people that are listening from our listener league. You could probably sit back and wait a long time to grab some tight ends later in the draft.
That's right.
Yep.
Let us draft Kelsey and Kittle and Waller. You guys get those.
That's what I mean. Let us get in top guys.
Late round guys. Well, I mean, since we're on the tight end theme, I also scrolled down a little bit. 186 in ADP, tight end 24, Blake Jarwin. Everybody was hyped up on Blake Jarwin before last season. Obviously, he gets hurt in week 1, but we saw what Dalton Schultz did at least while Dak was around, and somewhat with the Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert mess that they had after Dak. And if we can imagine a more athletic, just overall better tight end in Blake Jarwin, I mean, he could be a guy. And I mean, at tight end 24, worst case scenario is you miss, but I think he's a guy that can really go out there, especially if Dak is there and Dak is healthy for 16 games and really produce for you.
Well, something that's funny about Blake Jarwin is that, and this is kind of back to what we've been saying, this time of year is when values really start to shift. His December ADP was 224. So he rose 2 values in ADP, and he didn't do or change nothing. He isn't healthier than he was a month ago. He's still not playing. He's still not scoring points, but the market is saying, all right, yeah, we'll take him now. But they weren't taking him in December, right? That's so odd to me. But it's the what have you done for me lately crowd, right? He hasn't scoring points. I don't need him. But in January, that's fine. I don't mind if he's not scoring points. Nobody is. So, yeah.
So by April, he'll be a top 50
bias. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Give it a couple months. He'll be top 10 tight end.
So remember that, listener league. Blake Jarwin, use your first round pick or you won't get him.
No, first is way too early. You get 5th or 6th, you should be fine. I don't think you're going to get a lot of competition. You should be.
Oh man, that's awesome. So Rocky hitting us with a good question, and I'm sure Rocky is just trying to pick brains here and see what what we're thinking out of guys out of the outside of the top 100. But let's move on to JL's question. JL at JLefco NFL. Which second-year wide receiver is poised for a year two breakout in 2021? I mean, I already named mine. It's Brian Edwards.
I know Andrews.
But yes, we have the same one.
And Rager, right? I mentioned Rager.
You mentioned Rager. So we
Gabriel
got
Davis. I talked about, right? That's another guy that I think could have a huge
love
second
him,
year.
man.
Yep.
If I
Yeah,
can,
he should be taking over for John Brown, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of playing that role a little bit.
That's a good spot you want to playing after Diggs. I mean, he's going to get the top coverage. I mean, in all honesty, you could see Gabriel Davis become the next Calvin Ridley, and I know that's high praise, but that's kind of where that team's going. They're throwing a lot. Josh Allen doesn't seem to care, and if you got Diggs on one side, you got to guard him and Davis. I mean, you still got Beasley on the short routes.
Yeah.
I mean, that team could be on fire next season.
And
that'd be fun.
and that's the thing, man, with Gabriel Davis is like, yeah, Stephon Diggs is bad enough, but then you have to worry about Cole Beasley too. And, like I said earlier, we get a Zach Ertz sighting in Buffalo, and then it's really all downhill from there. So,
well, hey, wait, while we're talking about second years, we talked about Edwards, but what do you guys think about Ruggs? I mean, where are we at with him?
I'm okay with. I would still. I think he's going to be undervalued this offseason. I think everybody's going to just go like, "Oh, he sucked," but at the same time, I mean, that offense was just shaky, and I don't think that his skill set and Carr's skill set match up real well. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I'm okay adding him. Obviously, not nearly as early as he was going in last year's startups, but. I'm okay taking a chance on him. I think too many people are going to be low on him after 1 year, and that's the trap we fall into when we see these guys blow up in the first season. We think everybody should, and oftentimes it's the second year that these guys really do blow up. So I'm willing to roll the dice on somebody like that, and the hopes that they
change
do.
Quarterbacks. Yeah, I mean, if they get rid of Carr and they end up, I don't know, let's say for some strange twist they get Zach Wilson or something falls to them weird, or they get a really good trade, or I mean, you could see both Ruggs and Edwards be similar to what we were just talking about with Diggs and Davis, right? Like they could be two major players next season they're still young, they got plenty of traction left. But I know myself, I liked Ruggs coming into last season, so. I haven't changed my evaluation of him, right? He's still the same guy. He's got the same explosion. He's definitely got the speed, and he's got the talent, and he's got the opportunity. I mean, it just didn't line up. So I'm there with you. I think he could be a great one this year too.
And it's funny because I felt the opposite way about Henry Ruggs. I didn't like him during the process. So obviously, like it's funny. We're watching the same thing. We're seeing the same stats. We're seeing the same plays. And we both kind of are still feeling the same way. Like Henry Ruggs didn't do anything to prove my analysis wrong, but also it's only year one. So, yes, we had, Justin Jefferson.
With Derek Carr.
Justin Jefferson blew up, and,
the context is important.
CeeDee Lamb had a good season considering what was around him, and we can, even Gabriel Davis, we're looking at him, we're like, whoo, but.
Well, that team relied on Nelson Aguilar. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
What? Like, why not Ruggs? You give
and the thing is, we're, as you've been saying, Andrew, this whole time, we're going to see these spikes because one of the rumors out of Las Vegas is that they're trying to trade Carr and take whatever assets they get to put together to get Deshaun Watson.
Could you imagine?
If that
Ruggs would be the Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that would be like his Will Fuller, and he could just launch it up there.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, everyone, whether you like him or you hate him, everyone's perception on Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards and even Darren Waller changes. You're going to hear, if that happened, you're going to hear Darren Waller tight end one talk because now it's Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball.
And I think it would be the opposite. Like
I was going to say the same. I think
people would think. I think some people I agree would think the same thing as what you just said, Josh. But I think a lot of the analysts would come out and say, "Well, that's not going to be the best skill set matchup because he never threw to his tight ends in Houston."
Right.
So it'd be interesting because you'd have like the almost like consolidation. There'd be like nobody would really know. Like there'd be like this side that does it,
two
and this
narrative
side that does
streets
it
intersect. You know what I mean? Which one's right?
And then the great part is, and we get, I love the off season when this kind of stuff happens, because then you have a side, obviously, like Bill said, that's going to say, hey, like, look at what Deshaun Watson has done during his career. It hasn't been to the tight end. And then you're going to get the side that thinks, Waller could be the one that's going to say, well, who the hell were his tight ends?
Yeah,
Jordan
yeah.
Akins, and so that's going to be so.
It's
funny
like
to
it's like the Philly running back argument.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
you're gonna have the Bulls and Bears. Like everybody's gonna be like at one side of the market. Some people are gonna think it's great, the other side aren't. But yeah, and I think I think that my guy for wide receiver, second year wide receiver, is. Well, I think he already popped, but I think that he's undervalued right now, and that's T. Higgins, because like he did terribly like at the end of the season when Burrow was out, and so I think that people are going to discount him. Like he got 900 yards, but just imagine if Burrow was there the whole year, he'd have been second in receiving yards by a mile, and like he wouldn't have been 1,400, but he probably would have been around like 1150 or 12. He'd have been well over, like, probably 200 yards more than CeeDee Lamb. And so I think he's the guy that I think is probably undervalued. The other guy I was thinking is Jerry Jeudy. I think that he just got plunked into a situation that they kind of needed him to be the wide receiver one, and he just isn't ready for that. And I don't necessarily think he is a wide receiver one type of wide receiver. I think that Cortland Sutton being on the other side is going to help him hugely. And I think he's another guy that I think I'm going to be aiming at, because I think a lot of people are down on him this offseason.
Yep, great pick.
So I just want to say that the T. Higgins commentary is sponsored by Dynasty Outhouse. Dynasty
Right.
Outhouse of the Trade Addicts podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother.
But no, I mean, obviously Russ has been on him since day one. But I mean, Bill, you're absolutely right. I mean, T. Higgins, if he plays 16 with Joe Burrow, you saw what was going on between those two guys before the Burrow injury. I mean, I was somebody during the offseason that said, look, maybe AJ Green returns to form. And I think they tried for the first month of the season. They were feeding him targets. He was getting a ton of targets. And then I think they realized, hey, this ain't it anymore. We thought maybe he could come back, and then it would pretty much turn into the T. Higgins show after that, And obviously they still have Tyler Boyd, who's a monster in his own right. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, Bill, I'm shocked that you didn't mention the guy that I thought you were going to mention. Detroit's own Quintez Cephus.
I don't believe that he's going to. I think if Stafford was still there, I would love it. But now that Goff's there, I don't love it, because I was mentioning this last year, and I think a lot of times people don't look at the fit between the quarterback and the wide receiver. And when you have a quarterback that has an arm that is aggressive, like Stafford, you can have a wide receiver that maybe doesn't create as much separation and is more physical, because you just throw the ball in there and you hope his hands, are able to win the ball. But when you have a guy like Jared Goff, doesn't have that arm, and he's a little bit more passive in his passes, I don't see that being a great fit, between the quarterback and wide receiver. So that's why I'm super high on some of these wide receivers in for the Rams this year, because now you got kind of like a YOLO quarterback that is going to just, these guys will have not seen anything like it. And that's what's exciting to me. We don't even know what that offense is going to be like. People think this is a reasonably lateral move, and I think that they don't understand the true difference in skill set between these two quarterbacks. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. The only issue that could be is that Stafford's arm is so strong that these guys aren't used to catching passes that are thrown that hard. Calvin, he had to retire because his hands were so destroyed because of Stafford's arm. And, the same thing with Golden Tate mentioned it. He's like, man, they're fastballs, and so So that's the tough thing, and that's why like it didn't surprise me a little bit that Ebron did better when he went to Indy. Like he had bad hands. Like you're not gonna have great hands catching a pass from a guy who can gun the ball like that. So then he goes to somebody who has a little bit more touch and everything's not a fastball, and he can catch some things. So that's the only reason I didn't pick Quintez. But
well, to jump in for a second,
of a joke. But
Quintez might be the only one left, right? Galladay, I doubt he resigns with Goff there. Marvin Jones most likely out. I mean, who do you got? You got Hawkinson and Cephas.
Tight end one, Hawkinson.
But I agree, but I'm just saying that could really make Cephas a great buy low, right? If he's QB or wide receiver 3 or 4 on that team right now, I mean, he could be their best option because if they're rebuilding, especially, they may decide, we'll wait on receivers till next season and we'll just kind of build with what we have. I mean, there's a lot of question marks on the team right now.
I just think it's so easy to replace wide receivers, and I think that they're starting to see that. It doesn't it's just like in fantasy, right? Like, I mean, if you don't get an elite wide receiver, why draft guys in the 3rd, 4th round when there's an equal guy in the 6th round? And because there's just such a
free agents everywhere,
and especially this year, and you're going to see so many guys getting cut because the teams can't afford them because the salary cap dropped so much, and so it's just going to be it's going to be a fun, crazy off season. If you love chaos, this is it. And March I love chaos.
Especially on the timeline, right? Like this is exactly what we do on this show, right? So you guys love this stuff. This is going to be great for you, content.
Yeah, something to talk about, right?
Every day.
I love it. And talking about chaos, Steve brings up an interesting question. If we could go back to Vegas for a minute, what do you do with Nelson Aguilar? Because Nelson Aguilar was the wide receiver 1 for Vegas this year. So I believe he's a free agent.
Sell. I mean, no, I don't want him. It's just too risky for me.
Who knows where he ends up? I mean, and let's face it, he's probably not ending up somewhere where he ends up becoming the wide receiver 1 again. I mean, most likely. I'm with Andrew. If anyone kind of fell in love with Aguilar after his play, get what you can get out.
Yeah, he's like Darnell Mooney to me. He's going to be a good guy that you like to have on your bench just for like bye weeks and stuff like that. Like even if he goes somewhere else, I'll be happy to have him, but I'm not paying up for him right now. I think that if he ends up not re-signing with the Raiders, you can get him at a discount. So it's kind of one of those things like, I'm not going to make a move for him until I know where he's going.
He's not a bad throw-in, right? I mean, if you're looking, you need one little piece. You like the trade, but the guy sent it and it's a blind trade. You're like, I'll send Aguilar and I'll take it. Like, for why not? I agree with you, but at the same time, like, I don't like trading for players I don't plan on starting at this point in the offseason, or the non-point scoring season. I like trading and consolidating a little bit. Let's get some picks, maybe. Let's do something there. But then as we get closer to August, that's when I start to spread some of that value around and make sure I got depth for the season.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're not wrong either. I mean, Aguilar is one of those guys. In some leagues, he could be on waivers even. Right. Yeah, you could have somebody that just at the end of the year, they're like, well, I'm not keeping him. You know what I mean? He's not signed. And I know Sleeper just went through and did all their IR designations were all removed. So in all of my leagues, I went and cut everybody that I was like, here, screw it. Let's just get rid of things. Is that what you can add? Because you can't add players unless your IR is valid.
Right.
So I was like, we might as well just cut some of this in the herd. So there could be a lot of leagues that he's on waivers and he might be better than a guy you've got like Marvin Hall on your bench or Antonio Callaway on your bench that you just keep hoping and you're like, all right, Aguilar's probably better than that guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, all right, there's some of those players.
So he's a good throw-in or something like, I mean, if you really are feeling like you're light at wide receiver and you just need a little depth, but I can't see that being the issue, right? Like there's so many wide receivers out there. It's like, he's just another one of those. He's a jag, right? Like he's just truly a jag. And it's just, I mean, he's like a late 3rd rounder, or maybe you can get him in with a 4th round rookie pick or something. That you're
especially if you're on the clock, right? Yeah. Everybody, when you're 402 and you're on the clock, and you're like, I don't know any of these guys. None of these guys are really going to be players I'm going to start. And I'll take Aguilar, sure, why not? Like, it's
right.
Who knows?
I'm with you on that one. So, all right, we're gonna move it on here to our man, and we mentioned him earlier. He's in the chat right now. @short_logic. what's the best slot to draft out of for a dynasty startup this year? Let's say you had the first pick of which slot you wanted. Where are you picking? 101, maybe discuss different strategies and tiers or whatever goes into it. My guess is the 104 is probably the smartest pick. So, Andrew, I'll give you a little behind the curtain on this one. We just picked Kentucky Derby style for our listener league draft. So, short logic won the 100-yard dash to get first for his draft selection. So he went with the 104. So I think he is looking to maybe get some confirmation that what he did was right. But if you're in that situation, Andrew, you have the first pick of your draft slot in a dynasty startup. What are you going with?
Well, I think it depends again on context. I hate using that, but it's the answer. If it's a league that I know is going to be active, or I know the startup draft is going to have a ton of movement in it, give me the 101 all day, because I'll move back. I'll acquire assets. Give me the 101, and then I can trade it for a 104 and 304. Something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can start to gain a little bit of value on your team. I love doing that in startup drafts. But if it's a league that I don't know anybody, or I'm a little uncertain about how trading is going to go, or it's somebody it's a league that I know has players in it that I've got other leagues with that are kind of hesitant to move around, I don't mind the 104. I don't think that's a bad pick. It's still probably a little too far for me. I still like 101 in almost every single situation. I also, and maybe this is, again, strategies, what he wants some more info on. I like picking at the turn, because you can kind of see how the board falls to you. You can make a reach and not feel like you're reaching, because you're like, well, I got 23 picks till my next turn. It's not really a reach. I'm going to get my guy. And especially in Superflex, when there's only really 20 good startable quarterbacks, when you get back to you at 24 and 25, you can go quarterback and be like, all right, well, I'm safe. I don't have to worry about this next stretch, because some of those times those quarterbacks fly off the board. There was a startup I think I did last year that I had the 103, and I came back around at 210, and there were already 14 quarterbacks gone. And I was just like, so I took Devontae Adams. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, because that guy's still there. I'm like, well, okay. Like, so at 103, I took Lamar, so I didn't really need a quarterback. But it was like by that point, I was like, I'm just playing the board now. So I like being at the ends if I can. I will say that's different in redraft for me. In redraft, I like to be in the middle, because it's only this year, and the trades aren't as often, at least from what I've noticed. Yeah. But in Dynasty, give me the 101 and I'll make it work for sure.
So Bill, if the two of us hadn't been tied together during the 100-yard dash, and we didn't come in
do the three-legged race,
dead last in the 100-yard dash, so our spot was chosen for us pretty much.
Man, we were like
11.
We started out with gusto. We were like in the top 4, like at about the 70, and then now we just petered out.
I mean, let's face it, the two of us combined, we ain't winning a lot of 100-yard dashes. So
it's all the burst. Like, give me a 10-yard, that's cool. But
that's like at the combine, the 10-yard split that they show you.
Yeah, that's our 40.
That's our. So, Bill, if we had received that first pick, what would you have come to me and said, hey, Josh, this is what I'm thinking about for our pick?
I'd have been like, we shouldn't have won this. We're the hosts, so let's just take 112.
Oh, that's nice.
Don't worry, Andrew, because as soon as he said that to me, I would have told him to shut the hell up and take the 101.
I would have taken the 101. I mean, that just I would just take the 101, take Mahomes and the Superflex, and that's it. And then
You're good. Yep.
Then I would just be coasting at quarterback for like about 3 rounds.
See, and this is what's going to make our listener league draft fun, because Bill and I are co-owning the team, and I may even live tweet this as it's going on.
Please.
Sounds like a lot of work.
I'm more in your camp, Andrew, where like, yeah, give me the 101, but like, let's start trading down and acquiring assets.
Of course, but like I'm super content ending up with the best quarterback of the next decade on my my roster. Like And you
Well,
can
that
always
value
trade
is
him later on too. Like he
Oh, yeah,
is
that
just
value is as insulated as it gets. That's what we were
yeah,
just
he's
saying, right? Like,
essentially
yeah,
he is the tier 1 in my opinion.
by
So
himself. I agree.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's hard to
So
find that in any. Like, I don't think that's happened before. Like, it's almost
yeah.
always been, McCaffrey, Kamara, Barkley, Zeke. There's like a couple, and then you got the quarterbacks. You got like Lamar was there last year, and
yeah.
Mahomes, and now you got Kyler Murray. Maybe it's Mahomes, and then it's everybody else now. Yeah.
But and it's all different individually, right? So like if Josh doesn't really do the whole ranking and tier thing, so like I'll be doing that for us and then we can kind of hash it out. But like I could have a top 6 in my tier, like a top 6 players in tier 1.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then take the 106. Like I don't
Yeah.
see there being an issue. You want to say, okay, I know that I'm going to get pick 19 instead of 24 by doing that, then I don't see any fault in that and not taking the risk of not being able to, or of taking the risk of not being able to trade it. So, like, I don't have a problem taking the 104 if that's like you like 4 players pretty similarly. Like, I have no problem with that, especially if you like the 20th player instead of the 24th. So, like, those are,
Well, again, it comes back to we like to trade, right?
Yeah.
I think Josh and I are very much on the same page here too. Like I would rather take the pick and trade back, but there have been drafts, and back when I first started, I didn't trade at all because I was always afraid of getting fleeced. So in that case, hell yeah, 104, 105, puts me right in the middle. I can kind of play the board. But
Yeah.
as I've done more of these, you get more risky, or you just kind of are like, I'll try it again. Let's try it this way. So
and you don't have to react to the runs as much when you're
Right.
more towards the middle. So I totally get that, and I think that that's a more conservative decision,
Yep.
and I can't fault that. Like,
No.
I'm totally down with that, and so I don't think it's not what I would do, but I don't think that it's wrong.
I think the only wrong answer is 112. Right. I mean, I think we all agree that's the one nobody.
Like that was what I said. So,
but no, I'm just saying, like, I just think that's the one place that if you have to pick, why would you take I mean, other than being polite to your listeners, that's a good point. But I'm just saying, you're a terrifically nice gentleman, Bill.
Yes.
But I'm saying if it was my team, why would I take 112? Okay, I like 12 and 13. I guess, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of nice, but I don't think it's anybody's first choice. I mean, every other pick is ahead of that. But yeah, 104, 105, 106, sure. Yeah.
And he's in the chat. He said, well, mistake 1 is in the books for me, but it's not a mistake. And here's why.
Not a mistake. No.
1-4, you still have a lot of opportunity if your goal is to trade back. You have a lot of opportunity to do that. Because let's face it, we're talking to Superflex here, so it's going to be Pat Mahomes at 101. Honestly, I would guess at least three out of the top 4 picks are going to be quarterback. Maybe Josh Allen gets in there. Maybe Kyler Murray gets in there.
Well, you might have somebody
Deshaun
like
Watson.
Herbert or Prescott, or somebody jumps up at 3 and takes something interesting and kind of changes the cascade of the whole first round too.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen where you're
you
like,
can have CMC at 4
Yeah.
and win the league because CMC just says, here I go again.
Players in one. Yeah, exactly.
And and all of a sudden, yeah, let's say Deshaun Watson is there at 104, Are you telling me that, like, especially if he gets traded to a team, he's happy now? Maybe, we mentioned Vegas before,
Well, if he wasn't happy and he played like that, I don't want him to be happy.
Man.
But let's use, Vegas as an example since we were talking about it earlier. Now he has Henry Ruggs, a deep guy. Now he has Brian Edwards, a big dude that can run. He has Darren Waller, who's a monster. He actually has a running back in Josh Jacobs. Like, all of a sudden, we're like, oh my God, Deshaun Watson, like, he's going to throw for like 17,000 yards this year because, now he's finally surrounded with like some real talent, and they have a good offensive line in Vegas, which he doesn't even know what that looks like, having played in Houston for as long as he has. So, all of a sudden, you're going to get, people are going to knock on that door and say, hey, like, let's trade. So, yeah, a mistake. Honestly, no spot is a mistake. You can turn any spot in the first round into quality, whether it's through a trade, whether it's by making a good pick. you know, it's good. This will be a fun league, and I think maybe I'll live tweet some of the discussions that Bill and I have about.
Don't be giving my inside info.
Yeah, it'll just be our arguments where I'm like, no, Bill, no Patrick Mahomes. We're
We
trading.
are not taking Patrick Mahomes at 111. On to the next tweet.
Yeah, we're not doing it. Let some other sucker take him at 112. How about that? So here's a good one, and obviously, Andrew, now you have a little bit of context. This is from John P at JPip6. Dynasty Superflex tight end 1.5 premium startup strategy from the 111. Who do you hope would fall to you in the first, and who are you reaching for in the second? So,
do you want me to answer this so you guys don't give anything away?
I'll give away the answers.
We're gonna
go ahead.
answer. We're gonna answer.
Well, I mean, okay, if I'm at 111 and it's coming down and it's super flex, right? So I'm probably targeting a quarterback with at least one of those two, right? If it depends on who's available, but there have been so many times I say that and I get in the draft and I end up coming out with, like Devontae Adams and Saquon Barkley, where it's just like there's some crazy values that fall, and I'm one of those guys that likes to play the board or play the room, and I'm like
100.
Yeah, let's just take the best player. I can figure out quarterback later. I'll end up playing Ben Roethlisberger and Mitchell Trubisky, but I got two studs at these positions. I mean, so it's hard to predict that far away, and I hate using that as an answer. But at 111, I mean, so many things can happen by then. So I would say going into it, I'd probably say, well, I'm going to look for a quarterback at 11. And then if I see a crazy value, I'll look for him on the turn back. But even then, I don't think you need to reach at either of those picks either, because there's usually somebody else reaching from my experience, and I'll just take the value. Because at this time of year, you really just want to try to get value. That's the whole point of the non-point scoring season, is just put value on your team and you can trade it, move it later. That's the way I play. So that's kind of my answer. Is I don't know if I'm reaching for anybody, but that's my strategy.
Well, and I think too, and this is just talking obviously in like generalities, but you're talking about a 12-team super flex here. So the person at 111 they have 111 and then they have 202.
Yep.
So at some point, unless they are really confident in picking up QBs later, they're coming out of those two picks with at least one QB. Like, whether now I'm not saying it's 111. I'm also not saying, it's not 111, but, unless, I mean, our brother Rocky Petrella is picking at 110 in this league, and he's Mr. I'll get him later. Give me the Ben Roethlisberger. I'll take the 35-plus-year-old specials, and a Jameis, and maybe a Dwayne Haskins stash, and
are rookie drafts included in the draft, or is
rookie picks are included?
Because that's another wrinkle too. Because I could see at 111 or even at 202, maybe taking 101 if they're available, and just saying, all right, well now I got Trevor Lawrence too, so like that's a quarterback.
Right.
But at the same time, like that, having the picks in the draft, it makes it more fun because ADP kind of shifts down a little bit more.
Yeah,
and so
right.
I mean that's another wrinkle too. Is that if somebody takes the 101 at 109. Right now, you're like, well, okay, so there's a crazy value coming my way, right? So that's just where I value things. But yeah, and when is your draft? You said it's next week?
Starts next Wednesday.
Yeah, so you've got only a little bit of time, really. It's not like it starts in May or something. I mean, you're gonna be right in the throes of the non-point scoring season hype. So that'll be fun.
Someone will take Cam Akers at 103 and move it along. Actually, it's Larry Monkey. He's crazy enough to do that. So, but go ahead.
I hope Justin Herbert falls to 111 and CD Lamb at 202.
Man, you let me get CD Lamb, you ain't gonna hear the end of it. I'll tell you that right now. I will tell.
We're not picking them. I'm just giving out BS answers. So
I'm telling you right now. I don't care if we get them at 202, 302, 1002.
Yeah, it's better not be 202.
You let
that would be a reach.
Here you go. Here's a fight that I'll.
Let's look at that ADP. See where
he's 29. He's third round ADP.
Listen, we got to take him at 202.
Yeah, so we'd have to take him at 202 if we want him.
You got to grab him
in. We're not taking a wide receiver.
First fight of the draft. Bill won't let me have CeeDee Lamb. What the fuck, guys? But yeah, I mean, but you're right, Andrew, because like 111 is like, there are 10 people in front of you, which means like at least one thing is going to go wild. Like
But he said, who are we reaching for in the second round? So that would be a reach.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, that's who we're reaching for.
But at this time of year, the only people drafting right now are degenerates like us, right? So like it's always going to be crazy. That's what I love about drafts this time of year is that you really kind of whittle out all of the chaff and like all the people that barely play. They're not drafting in February. No, they're not serious. So it's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to hearing about it.
That's right.
Now I will say that the person picking at 112 is also a Dallas Cowboys fan. So maybe CeeDee Lamb doesn't even make it to us at 202. And
if you want him, you got to take him at 201 because he's going at 202.
He's going to pick Dak and CeeDee Lamb.
Good stack. Yeah.
Listen,
that is a good stack, actually.
Dak ain't making it past 111. I'll tell you that right now. Somebody better take him.
You guys are taking 7 players at both picks. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Because we're trading. We're always trading. We're going to have 7 picks in the first 2 rounds. How did we do it? I don't know.
Who wants Bill? Josh is trading me during the draft.
I would never trade Bill.
What would it take? What would it take, Josh? Start up 202? I mean, like, start up 201?
It wouldn't take that. Give him another, like, extra 15th rounder. He's willing to do that.
If someone happens to get their hands on CeeDee Lamb before me, Bill could be had for a CeeDee Lamb. I'm just saying.
CeeDee Lamb and a third.
I don't even need.
Or Bill and a third.
That's a whole nother wrinkle to the draft. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fun one. You could have Bill
that's a losing proposition for whoever trades for me, but
nah, Bill is riding with me because Bill and I we feel very similarly on a lot of players, but we approach the game in different ways, which is awesome because I think we're going to bring that mix of...
Yeah, so neither of us will be happy with our team at the end.
Perfect. Nobody's happy. Everybody wins.
Yeah, a hybrid of garbage.
Bill, listen, you're a Lions fan, so you're never happy. And I'm just perpetually cranky, so I'm never happy either. So, I mean, let's face it.
I'm that as well, just because I'm old and cranky. But
all
right, let's hit this last one.
Okay, let's hit the last one on the way out. So this is from Steve D, who's also in the chat at FF Swirly. How amazingly awesome is Josh Allen? If you were a true Bills fan, would you be able to live with yourself if you passed on him at the 101 in Dynasty Superflex startup? So Drew, who I've also seen in the chat, has the 101 in the listener league. He picked the 101, and he is a true blue, pun intended, Bills fan. I had an agreement from him that if the Bills had won the Super Bowl, we would both jump through tables and raise money for charity.
That's right.
Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But Drew's gonna have to make a big decision. Is he gonna just take some guy from another team that he doesn't follow and root for, or is he gonna take
who lost the Super Bowl? Like, why would you take a loser?
I mean, he didn't even look good.
No.
Yeah.
Andy lost me a bet. He needed to get a touchdown at the end, so I could have gotten 275 yards and won a bet.
Yeah, and guess what?
Players can't catch. Oh, guess
what? Patrick
throws it
Mahomes
right to the other team, not to them.
Yeah, and guess what? Patrick Mahomes doesn't have. He doesn't have Stephon Diggs. He doesn't have Cole Beasley. He doesn't have any of that. So I mean, Drew. I mean, if it were me, Patrick Mahomes, hashtag not my quarterback. I think I'd go with Josh Allen. Take him at the 101.
It's your only chance to get him. He's not going to make it back.
No, he absolutely won't.
I'm just saying, if it was me and Bill and I had the 101, I don't think it would be much of a fight between Dak Prescott.
We'd be taking Jared Goff.
And Jared Goff. I don't think that fight would last too long. But
it would not.
but Dak Prescott 101, but I don't have that pick. Bill and I don't have that pick. So,
true, we don't.
Unfortunately, I can't, put my money where my mouth is. But I mean, Drew, I'm putting that out there for you. Maybe, Patrick Mahomes, he just had surgery on his foot. Who knows? They might have to amputate that thing. I think you go with Josh Allen, hit 2 good feet. Stephon Diggs. He plays in the great city of Buffalo. I've been there. I've actually been to Orchard Park where the Bills play. Beautiful stadium. And you show the league that not only are you a true fan, but you are talented enough with Josh Allen as QB1 on your team to win the whole damn thing. So
I like it.
I think on that note, I think we ended with a great question. We ended on a high note. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for
my pleasure.
Taking the time with us. It was a great time. It was a ton of fun. You know what? I want you on the way out. Tell everybody where they can find you, what you're doing, and where you're at.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on Twitter at Andrew Hall FF. I write for Pro Football Network. I've been there for 2 years now. It's the off season, so things kind of slow down for me writing wise, which is kind of nice after the grind of the season. But I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. I'm just starting to get into some more tape and start to see some of these players. There's a whole bunch of rookies in the 3rd round that I don't even know who they are. So I think it's going to be interesting to see some of this new rookie ADP come out now that that's rolled over in MFL. We can start doing some of that and kind of digging into some of that research as we get into free agency. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I'll be posting a bunch of stuff on Twitter, just filling up your timeline with random Twitter polls and stuff. So it'll be great.
Yep. Follow Andrew.
Yeah, for real, follow Andrew, because anytime I see something that he's put out, man, I always learn something, and that, trust me, people think because I do a podcast, like I actually know what I'm talking about. I just follow smart people and repeat. Well, that's because you've done 66 episodes with me, Bill. Some of the other people out there, but it's because I follow smart people like Andrew that, they say the right thing, and then I just repeat what they say, and people actually think I know what I'm talking about. So that works. But yeah, follow him on Twitter. If you see it, if he drops an article and you see it, you best read it because you're going to learn something. So on that note, thank you to everybody who was in the chat. Short Logic, Steve Dennis, Lindsey Kennedy. I saw Chew Drink in there earlier. Drew was in there. Appreciate all you guys. Appreciate the commentary, the chatter back and forth, man. It's just like, it's so much fun to see that comment bar, and it's just kind of popping up, and people are poking fun at us. They're poking fun at each other, talking about their drafts and what they're going to do. And it's a lot of fun. So we appreciate that. If you are in the chat, make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell so you know when we go live. If you're listening to us on podcasts, it's almost an hour and a half. That is a long time to do anything. And we appreciate the fact that you spent it listening to us and talking about what we've been looking at on the timeline. Just remember to rate and review that as well. Gets us out there, gets more eyes to see us, and maybe we find a new listener or two because of it. So, Bill, on that point, I think we're gonna get out of here.
Late.